Call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item up is any opportunity for questions and comments from the public. Please come to the mic and you can state your name and address.
Members of council, this is on. Members of council, my name is Nicholas Graham.
Can you
I live
move
at
a
10.
little closer to it or pull it up a little bit?
I will pull it up. My name is Nicholas Graham. I live at 1013 Oak Ridge Drive. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm here regarding the Oak Ridge development at 1001 County Line Road, developed by Hallmark Building Group. I submitted letters to council dated March 9th and March 20th, 2026, with supporting materials, and I respectfully request that those submissions be entered into the record. I'm not asking council tonight to decide any technical engineering or regulatory question that belongs before other reviewing entities. My request is narrower. Because council may later be asked to consider bond release, public improvement acceptance, or financial security discharge for this development, I am asking council to ensure that the administrative questions raised in my letters are addressed through the township manager before any such action is taken. The October 8th, 2025 pre-maintenance punch list prepared by the township's consulting engineer identified 271 deficiency items across all 50 lots, 5 stormwater basins, open spaces, and buffer plantings. This is a development-wide township record, not a single lot disagreement. At a minimum, that suggests Oak Ridge should not be treated as a routine closeout matter. My letters raised 3 questions about the township's own process: whether available ordinance tools or evaluator are used, whether consultant-linked project records were fully captured in the township's administrative record, and whether those matters should be clarified before any closeout-related council action is considered. This illustrates one of the preserved tree protection issues raised in my letters. My letters also raise a narrower but important governance question. Township staff characterize certain on-lot conditions as private civil matters. At the same time, the township's own recorded declaration preserves township code enforcement authority. My letters ask how those positions are to be reconciled. So my request tonight is limited and procedural. Please enter both my letters and supporting submissions into the record. Please ensure that the questions raised in those letters are addressed to the township manager before any closeout related council action is considered. And if any Oak Ridge closeout item is placed on a future council agenda, I respectfully request the opportunity to address council before any vote. These are not simply my questions. They arise from the township's own ordinances, records, and project history. They should be answered before any closeout action is taken. Thank you.
I want to thank you for your diligence. I know that there are attachments to your emails. Is that graphic attached to your emails on the board? Would you be able to send that along? I would appreciate it.
I have other exhibits if you're interested.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public? Up is a presentation on the municipal separate storm sewer system.
We're pulling the PowerPoint up. We're ready. So one thing that you hear the staff periodically talk throughout the year is using the abbreviation MS4. It's also there's a line item in our general fund for that. So Dennis is our assigned MS4 coordinator, and still having tech problems. There we go. So I know 3 of you are brand new to council. So Dennis and Eric are going to work through and just give you a very quick summary of what MS4 stands for and what it is.
All right, I'm going to kick this off. Bill, if you could go to the next slide.
Come on, Eric.
So the first question, what is MS4? Just like everything else the engineers do, it's an abbreviation for something. So it is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, hence the 4 S words, MS4. So that's your storm sewers, your inlets, your pipes, your swales. The MS4 program, which is from EPA down to DEP, hit the townships in Pennsylvania in the early 2000s. And kind of at a high level nature, it's to try to regulate discharges into the streams and waterways in the area to try to keep them cleaner and whatnot. So if you go to the next slide, Bill. For probably the from like 2003 until like 2015, there was 6 what we called minimum control measures, MCMs. First one being public education and outreach. So something like we're doing here tonight. We're educating not just you guys, but anyone watching at home, anyone in the audience on what MS4 is, what stormwater is. Second MCM, it was construction site erosion control. So that's twofold. One, that is making sure that plans are being reviewed as part of the approval process, making sure the Montgomery County Conservation District's involved. But then also during construction, making sure someone's out there that if the silt fence got knocked down, that it's getting repaired quickly so that during a rain event you don't have muddy water getting into the waterways. Third one is public participation and involvement. Examples of that are like, if you have an Earth Day where you get the community to clean up a section of the park or stream cleanup, that kind of thing, tree plantings. Fourth is post-construction stormwater management. And I know some of you are new, but the 2 that have been on council for a while, we often talk about the stormwater design and what our office does to review it. And that's, we make sure that their plans include stormwater management provisions and that they also maintain those provisions after everything's built and approved. And you guys enter in with the developers and the HOAs and whatnot, stormwater maintenance agreements so that they continue to maintain them forever. Fifth one is illicit discharge detection. So that's to make sure someone doesn't take their deep fry oil after Thanksgiving and dump it down the inlet in the front of the yard and then it gets into the creek. So we do every so often what we call dry weather flow sampling, where we go to the various storm sewer outfalls in the township, and if it hasn't rained for 72 hours, there shouldn't be anything coming out of there. If there is, we'll take a sample, we'll send it to a lab. If it's got bleach in it or something weird in it, we know that probably someone hooked up, their basement washer discharge to their, sump pump that then got, something like that. And then last is pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So that's your public works employees, doing what they need to do to maintain their equipment properly, without getting too much in detail, but that kind of stuff. So if we move on to the next slide now. So like I mentioned, the last slide was like the first 12 years of the program. And then in roughly 2014, there was a new requirement, which was to do these total maximum daily load calculations for sediment, right? And how much sediment gets into the creeks in the area. And so we had to do what we called a PRP plan, a pollution reduction plan. to figure out ways to reduce the amount of sediment getting to your waterways. So we go to the next slide. So in Horsham, you are lucky that you have 3 different watersheds. You have the Neshaminy, the Wissahickon, and also the Pennypack. And they each have different requirements. And if you go to the next slide, the map of the township. And just so everyone's aware, kind of where Norristown Road hits Horsham Road. It's kind of the high point of the township, so everything to the right of the screen goes to the Pennypack. Everything to the left of the screen goes to the Little Neshaminy Creek. And then at the very bottom left, which is where 309 is in the township, some people don't even realize that the township has some frontage on 309. That little section over there drains to the Wissahickon Creek. So there's your 3 watersheds. We keep moving along. So part of that PRP plan was coming up with different BMPs, best management practices, basin retrofit, stream restorations that we could do to help meet the requirements of the PRP plan. And we highlighted 4 of them on this chart because this was the chart we submitted to DEP, and then in the last 5 years you accomplished 4 of those. You were not required to accomplish all of them. It was kind of a big master plan, but you accomplished those 4. Whitmer Road with DCED and DEP grants, and the other 3 with the ARPA grant money. And if you go to the next slide, Dennis is going to take over and talk about a couple of the projects and some before and after photos.
So Whitmer Road, as you can see in the slide before, Whitmer Road is a huge basin. And if you look at something like Forrester, by the numbers, just say that's one basin. Whereas Whitmer Road, there could be probably 9 or 10 Forrester basins in this one basin. So when Eric says 4, realistically, I mean, we're doing much more than just 4 and going above and beyond what's required from Horsham Township. But this was our first basin retrofit and obviously our biggest one, like I said. And you can see the differences from the before picture to the after picture. You have different channels that are laid down, permeable soils, added vegetation, all to help slow the water flow and also the settlement. Next slide, Bill. In addition to those 3 basins, we also did a stream bank stabilization, which was down at the corner of, well, it was on Drescher Road, but if you know our property at the corner of Drescher Road and Horsham Road, so you can see the before and after photos there. And basically, after time, you can see how different sediments, rocks, soils are washed down the creek. The bed changes. There becomes buildup from rocks and islands, which kind of reroutes the water a little bit, and it's just not good for the soil, it's not good for the bank, it's not good for the vegetation. So what we did is we did a restabilization, came in, and as you can see from the after photo, how completely different it looks, and we have additional stakes in there with the vegetation, and the buffer is completely different than it was before.
And those after photos were like right when construction got done. Obviously, if we took photos in March, it wasn't going to look very good. So
Yeah.
Was that the sides of that?
Matting,
yeah,
like the straw matting.
and they're called live stakes that are sticking up there. And again, it's trying to naturalize it. I know that the top photo looks like, oh, well, that's what every creek in the area looks like. Sure, but every one of those creeks, when we have a flash flood, erodes, puts a lot of sediment in. So that's why the bottom photo, from actually a sediment perspective, doesn't allow as much sediment to get into the creek on these flash floods and then, wash downstream and cause degradation for wildlife and whatnot.
That's the stabilization part too of the project, is when you have that type of vegetation, you build that stability within the root system, so that way when the water does kind of get deflected, you're not getting that same erosion as you would as easily as the picture above.
Clarifying, the part that looks, you said like the pipe, that's what's preventing the soil from washing in while it's settling, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
What is it called? Say again? Coconut
So
logs?
it helps with the stabilization because
right.
that it's so new that it just doesn't wash away into the creek.
Thank you.
Right?
Tastes great too,
Yep.
no.
Yeah,
It's made out of, so it's just like a
it's, yes.
Kind of like
core?
like a stabilizing like filter almost. But the easiest way, these are projects that we've done in the past couple years, and we really took the bull by the horns and got after these projects. Our requirements that we completed, as you can see, they cost a lot of money. And these aren't like a shiny new playground in the park or a brand new paved road that you see and the residents see. But we know that it's our responsibility for us to do our due diligence and take care of the environment in town. So it's very important to us. And I know there's a lot of townships that have these same regulations that really didn't do anything. So we're so far ahead of everybody else, and the money in that was last year's summer edition of the newsletter, we had a huge spread on all of our environmental benefits and projects that we've completed. And just in MS4 alone, I mean, we've spent about $1 million on these projects. So for us to be out on top, and when other townships are kind of turning the blind eye to having to get this done, obviously because there's requirements with no federal funding, but we did our part. We stepped up to the plate, and we got grants for some of them, and we're in really good shape. So I know that Eric's going to talk about some of the changes that are happening with the requirements as far as what's going to be decided for next year. But I always like to say my quick example for MS4 for people that it sounds foreign to them. When you think of like a water park, and you have like the family slide where there's a family of 5 in a big rubber tube, and they do like a little slide down into a pool, and then from that pool they go down another slide to another pool. That's kind of a great example of what MS4 is. You would think like, back in the day, they just had those slides that you went so fast and you went right down to the bottom. So this is like the exact opposite of that. You want to take the water, you want to slow it down, you want that first pool, you want the sediment to come out of the soils, so that way it's kind of filtered and clean, and then slowly release it down. So that way, our neighborhoods in our town and other towns down the stream aren't just getting hammered from our stormwater. So I always like to favor that example because it's a good, realistic example of what MS4 is. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming up as far as our regulations.
Thank you, Dennis. So when the sediment reduction plans got rolled out in like 2015-ish timeframe, it was supposed to be a 25-year plan, right? That DEP and EPA were like, hey, Horsham, come up with your 25-year plan, do these things in your first 5 years. Well, I'm sure everyone's going to be really surprised to hear that EPA has completely changed what they want to do, and that there's no longer a sediment reduction plan that they're talking about. They're completely getting away from the 25-year plan 5 years in. So they are now moving to volume management objectives. What that is exactly going to be, we don't know yet, because this permit is still in its draft phase for public comment. We think projects like stream bank stabilization are not going to matter anymore, because stream bank stabilization doesn't reduce the volume of water, right? They're going to want new basins. They're not going to want just your basins to be retrofit. So it was great that Horsham did what they needed to do and was a good citizen, because it still cleaned the water up. Like, that's still important, but we don't know where this is going. And this might be the next 5 years, and then they'll have something else for the next 5 years. So just something to keep in mind. The one nice thing they have told us is that multi-municipal projects will get credit. In the past, if Horsham and Montgomery Township wanted to do a project together, The project obviously had to be in one of the municipalities, and that was the only municipality that was going to get credit for it. So why would Montgomery Township want to do something in Horsham, right? But they're acknowledging that this is a budget drain, and if people can get together, multiple people should get credit for helping. And there's probably going to be a new model stormwater ordinance, so we'll probably be coming to you at some point with a new ordinance to meet their requirements. And we don't know when this is going to happen. This was supposed to have happened already, and it's still sitting out there. Anyone who pays attention to the news, EPA funding can come and go. And DEP is understaffed and has a lot of things going on, so we don't know when this is going to take into effect. But you've taken care of what you had to, and we're kind of in a waiting pattern right now. And then the last slide is, always something to keep in mind is how do you pay for all this stuff? I mean, you saw the examples on the screen of what we've done so far was all grant funding for the most part. But, moving forward, depending on what the requirements are, sometimes the township can do some things with Public Works and Park and Rec. Sometimes it's talking about putting some general fund dollars towards it. We don't know. And then, like I mentioned, maybe there's ways to partner so that every municipality doesn't have to put up as much money by themselves. So that's it. That's MS4 in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions. Does anyone remember what MS4 stands for? Thank you.
Was there any statistics from the agency on compliance with the initial MS4 requirements?
No, because we submitted PRP plans in like 2019, 2018, 17, somewhere in that ballpark. And we didn't hear anything for a couple of years. And then DEP came up with, and then DEP said, hey, just assume what you submitted was approved.
Oh.
So it's been a very tough rollout of a program.
Well, I was wondering if they're changing it because people didn't comply or because it makes sense to change it. And then I guess my follow-on question or thought is that now they've had communities invest in this, and all communities, I'm sure, are resource strapped. And it's great that we did have grants to cover these. But exactly to your point, what if you do this again and it's just a waste of effort and resourcing?
There are communities that were not as good of citizens as Horsham Township. And
Like most.
Yeah, most.
Yeah.
And at this point, it doesn't seem like they're getting in trouble for not doing anything, right?
Yes, so why do we continue to?
Well, we're not. We're taking a pause.
We're paused right
Still
now.
stewards of the
Yeah, no, and I certainly care about the
The good
environment.
news is, like I
but-
said, in our basin retrofits, even if they focused on the sediment and now they're focusing on the volume reduction, they do both of those. So it's not like, oh, we did these basins and they don't count. So the amount of water is, everything's in place for that water to kind of stay in place and then slowly trickle down. So
They have said.
that's in our favor.
They have said that those municipalities that did things, they are going to figure out a way to give you some credit towards the next requirement. Again, it's why are they changing? I don't think it's because no one complied. I think it's because someone at a federal level decided that there's a different way that we should be doing this.
But stay tuned. Whatever they roll out next might turn out to be just like the old way. And, we did the right thing. And we spent, Dennis said $1 million, but I bet you it's 1.5 million or more. We did the right
With
thing.
grants. We spent with
grants,
grants, yes.
But we had township tax dollars,
Yeah.
that mainly went to, engineering and design, what the
Public
grants
Works
didn't cover.
assisted, just like in that
In
that
kind
last
labor.
slide.
But we did above and beyond what most communities did not do. And the reason why they didn't do it is an unfunded mandate. And they just simply said, we do not have the money to do it. And thus,
Which makes
and they didn't
sense,
do it. It does.
right?
It does. And now they just went along their business, running their townships and municipalities. And guess, lo and behold, the whole thing went, and now they're creating something new. So we're taking a pause, and we'll see how it all plays out. But as Dennis also mentioned, what we did is good for the environment. Everything we've done is helping with water quality, water control, flooding, stormwater. So it's not something that went to waste or anything, but But now they're shifting, as Eric explained, they're shifting, and we're going to take a pause and not have a knee-jerk reaction and to things like we did in the last round.
And I apologize if you said this, the pictured area, I believe, that's the area across from the Starbucks, like that Drescher
Correct.
and Horsham
Correct.
Road area. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Now I'm going to just, we're just going to do a quick photo op. You're going to stay in your seats, and you're going to look at the screen. As Dennis and Eric put in front of you, I'm taking some advantage. Yeah, this is an educational, yeah, we had to document this.
And then they stage the most.
It's not stages or educational
Okay. All right, next item up is the approval of the list of checks.
I move to approve the list of checks and all funds from March 19th, 2026 to March 25th, 2026 in the amount of $795,506.73 and further move to authorize payment of same.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we have a couple of zoning hearing board applications to be heard.
You have 3 residential applications. Your first one is 300 Keith Valley Road. That is in our R2 zoning district. They would like to install a detached garage, which is highlighted on yellow. This is Keith Valley Road. This is Davis Grove Road. Their driveway comes in off of Keith Valley and then winds around on the property. This is their existing home. So they're proposing the detached garage. It will not be facing Davis Grove Road. The garage doors will be facing their driveway inward into the property. But the existing house, which is an historical home, is 36 feet from the roadway. Our zoning requires 60 feet, but this is an existing nonconformity. So they want to match it up with the house, keep it at 36 even. The staff recommendation would be that you would consider this to take a neutral position on this application with the condition that the facade matches the historical nature of the house. And what you could do is just say that the facade to the satisfaction of township staff that we would look at it when they submit their plans if they get their variance from the zoning hearing board to build the garage.
Okay.
Your second one is CDW LLC, which is 1105 County Line Road. It's also in our R2 zoning district. This is the lot here. Park Road is down this way. This is County Line Road. This is an existing house. Historically, these 2 lots were owned by the same property owner for many decades. So this is the driveway to this existing house. There's a shed on the property for this existing house, but they were 2 separate lots. They've been sold off separately, and now they would like to put a single-family home here. As you would see in your packet, they need 10 variances, which is very extremely rare in Horsham Township, that someone would need 10 variances. And as you can see in your packet, I'm not going to read all 10 variances, but basically every zoning code we have for R2, they need relief from. Side yard, rear yard, front yard, parking, size, it's supposed to be 1 acre. It's not 1 acre. So they need lot area, building area, the list goes on. So I think they're just trying, at least with what they have submitted, they're trying to put too much on this lot. And the staff recommendation that you would be opposed to it And also staff recommendation would be that you send the township solicitor to the zoning hearing board in opposition to the application. You taking a opposition to the application might trigger them to reach out to us and communicate with us, and maybe try to compromise a little, scaling things down.
And historically, that's been the case with something like this? If there was opposition, that they would reach out to try and have a discussion?
Most of the time when they know that the township is opposed to something, that will trigger that.
Okay.
But most of the time in Horsham, they would have reached out to us before
In
this,
advance,
before they
sure.
submitted their application, which they
Okay.
didn't do.
Okay, thank you.
Good? Last item on the,
Last item is 213 Maryland. It's in our R4 zoning district. So this is a property that they, without permit, this is the house here. This is a carport. This is a detached garage. So without a permit, they concreted their driveway all through here in front of their garage. So they're way over their impervious coverage. They're allowed 25% in this zoning district. With what they have done without permit, they're at 46.9% impervious coverage. So they are working with our code enforcement department. They don't shy away. They admit what they did was without township approval and township permit. What they have come up with our code staff is to remove this section of concrete in the rear of the house in front of the detached garage, turning that back to grass, install two seepage beds or pits, one in the backyard, one in the front yard, and that all the rain gutters for the detached garage would tie in, as well as the rain gutters for the house would tie into the two seepage pits to help control stormwater and the impervious coverage. What the staff recommendation that we'd like you to consider is that they be neutral, but with the conditions that they have to hire an engineer and come up with engineering plans. This is, of course, not an engineered plan. And have an engineer draw up plans to control this additional impervious coverage, and then our engineer would review the plans and either approve or provide comments. But of course, no permit would be issued unless our township engineer agrees or approves what their engineer comes up with. What we need to find out from you this evening is, if you are comfortable with that recommendation, Eric and his team would need a number from you. So, as I said, 25% is allowed in this district. They're currently at 46.9%. If they take out this section of concrete, that would put them at 43%.
So just to clarify what Bill was saying, would any impervious over 30% be something that you'd want them to manage in these seepage pits or rain garden or whatever they come up with? Or would you prefer 35% or 40%? I would just like the number to be put in the letter to the zoning hearing board. So if the zoning hearing board approves it with that condition, we know what we're holding them to. They know what they're designing to. Otherwise, if we don't agree, they'll be coming back to you in the zoning hearing board, and we're trying to prevent that from happening.
we're talking about anything over. So if they are now at, what was it, after 42, 43?
They would be, if they remove that section, they'd be at 43%. So you're,
That 13% is what we're accounting for.
If you say
If we set
anything
the limit
over-
at 30.
Yeah, now, again, if they want to keep removing impervious to get down to whatever that number is, then they won't have to do any seepage bits, but that's the number. So if you say 30% as an example, that would probably be my recommendation, then we know whatever over 30% is what they'll have to size these stormwater BMPs for.
Do you have an understanding of what that 13% overage in terms of?
How big's the property? From is it? So there's like 1,700 square feet of impervious, right? So your ordinance, forgetting about this for a second, anything over 1,000 square feet of new impervious requires stormwater management. So 1,700 square feet is above that threshold, so we'd want to do stormwater management for it. But again, if we took it all the way down to the zoning allowance, 25, now that number goes up. But obviously some of this impervious, and it's on a lot of lots in the township, exceeded the zoning who knows how many years ago, maybe before the ordinances. So
You can see it here. This is the lot we're talking about, and you can see compared to the other lots, you see a lot of green. And you see the concrete, and you see a detached garage, and you see a trampoline and a pool, and not a lot of green. So that's what we're working with.
So, and historically, when it comes to these impervious related relief, whatever the zoning allowance is, you generally allow 3 to 5% more without needing to do stormwater management, as long as it's not over that 1,000 square feet. So I guess that's where I'm coming up with this 30% number.
Have any thoughts or opinions on 30%?
The other condition that I would just ask, is that there would be a stormwater maintenance agreement recorded on the property, too.
Because of the MS4 permit.
That flow is optimized. Yeah.
You need us to say a number, and the number should be 30%.
30%.
Okay, 30%.
John, are you okay with every?
I'm good with 30%.
Okay, and
Oh, that John. The one
and John,
on the
he's okay with what you guys want.
Who put both Johns next to each other?
It's going to happen each meeting now.
That he's okay with all the conditions.
I'm not voting on anything, so at least that one. But no, 30%, that's an objective criteria. It'd be easy to put that into the proposed condition, along with the O&M agreement for.
Next item up is to render a decision on the Hallmark Building Group, Inc., Park Road Conditional Use Application 26-01-CU, and I believe this gets turned over to Mr. Walco.
Thank you, Madam President. As the council recalls, there was a hearing on the conditional use application of the Hallmark Building Group at the March 11th meeting. That was a conditional use hearing where they were proposing to do a corridor crossing for a road and utility transmission line and naturalized stormwater basin installation in a riparian corridor for the vacant 84.11 acre property fronting Park Road, surrounding the 29 Park Road property. The applicant presented evidence and documentation that was in support of the application. There were no parties here opposing that application. At this time, after the testimony and exhibits, there is a recommendation that application be approved by this council, contingent upon the following conditions. 1, that the applicant comply with all the testimony and exhibits presented at that hearing, unless council feels otherwise. 2, the applicant shall comply with all of the statutes, laws, regulations, rules, codes, and ordinances of the United States, Pennsylvania, and Horsham Township, and comply with any other entity having jurisdiction over the matter, including the DEP or the Horsham Water and Sewer Authority regulations. Number 3, that the applicant comply with the comments and recommendations of the township engineer as set forward in the February 20th and March 2nd conditional use review letters by Gilmore. And they should also comply with the recommendations and conditions in the February 9th Montgomery County Planning Commission letter to the extent the township engineer deems applicable and necessary. And 4, as this was before council previously for a land development application that was approved, that the applicant continue to comply with all the conditions of that land development plan approval as established by the township. Those would be the 4 conditions that I'd recommend be attached to the approval of this application if council so deems it appropriate to approve. And with that, this application is now in a position to be voted upon by this board.
I move to approve the conditional use application for Hallmark Building Group, Inc., Park Road 26-01-CU.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. McCarty, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dr. Patterson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Thompson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Chunky, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ms. Laff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next item up is to authorize the solicitation of the following bids: contractor milling paving line painting project, milling for the township paving project, and line painting.
As council knows, all 3 of these are for basically our summer road program. Our Public Works paves a certain amount of roads, and we have a private contractor that paves a certain amount of roads. So these bids you see at this time of the year, the contractor milling, paving, and line painting is for the private contractor bid, and then the milling, as it says, is for our Public Works crew, and then that's line painting on all township roads throughout the township.
I move to authorize the solicitation of bids for contractor milling, paving, and line painting project, milling for township paving projects, and line painting projects.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Last item on our, nope, not the last. Next item up is to discuss the Chestnut Creek Park improvement concepts.
Just so, I don't know why it's showing up like that. It's not like that on my screen. It is. I'm trying. It's not been a good tech night. There we go.
Ever?
There we go. All right. So everyone knows Chestnut Creek Park, which is right here. That is what we refer to as the Hawks. That's where the Hawks football and cheerleading, that is their home, as well as boys lacrosse, Hatboro Horsham Boys Lacrosse Club. And it's a park that we really haven't done much to since it was originally put in place. Now probably going on 18, 20 years or longer. So there's a clubhouse here. This is their main football field, parking lot off of Lower State Road, and then all of these are their practice fields in this area. This is Limekill Pike out here. This is the Worth property. As you know, that is an approved land development plan of, I think, about 35 single-family homes. It's a Toll Brothers development. It also saves the historical house here. As part of that land development approval, they'll be putting, of course, sidewalks along the front, along Limekill Pike. And then after the road entrance into the new development, it switches to an asphalt trail coming down Limekill Pike. And then it'll swing in here at this location. This is still the Worth property here. And then in the land development plan, it shows the trail going and then just go back here and then stopping at the property line with the Kohler Farms. We don't know when we are going to extend that trail because, of course, right now the Kohlers are not developing, thank goodness. Hopefully it's decades away, if ever. But we're going to loop it. So if you go back where the dog park is in Kohler Park, there's a little circle. So by the dog park, we're going to do the same thing here since it's instead of just dead ending into the property line. They have to, as part of their land development approval, Toll Brothers has to put a flashing warning signal here, just like the one right out front here in front of the firehouse, but it'll be more modern, like the one on Drescher Road, LED lights and stuff, more visible here on Limekiln Pike. And Toll Brothers has to put a trail. This is our property. This is our property that goes all the way out to here, all the way out to here. This is Pico property, sorry. So those are the Pico high power lines. This is all township property over here. This is township property. Anyway, and there's a creek. There's a creek that runs through here and goes out this direction. So they had to put the crossing here, and they're responsible for putting a trail here, right on the edge of the property line with Pico, on our township property, and then their trail stops right here. Our Public Works is going to, they will take the end where the trail goes, and is unknown right now, but they were probably this direction, because we like to stay away from people's backyards and their homes. We'll probably go straight along the edge with the power lines back to the parking lot. So our Public Works will do that trail. Right now, we have this over here too, because we were like looking at that, but we always hear from the residents if we start to get too close to people's backyards. So we like to, if we're able to, and it works, we like to, stay away from people's backyards. The stone parking lot would be paved, and lights exactly like across the street that you see over in Deep Meadow would be added to the parking lot. And then an idea, again, this is just conceptual plan, is in this red circle area, in this area, to put some type of play apparatus. It wouldn't be a destination playground. It wouldn't be something that would be a regional attraction like everybody's playground. That doesn't fit here in this area, nor this park. But this park, it is a township park, and it would be nice to have some type of play apparatus here. And I say some type because we can have those discussions, in the future. But it'll give the kids that are there to watch their older brother or sister cheerlead or play football something to do, rather than getting in trouble in the stands, not listening to their parents. And these neighborhoods here, so there are residential neighborhoods around. The coming neighborhood across from Limekiln Pike, they would have easy access to this park and have something to go to. So again, it was just sort of, tonight was just sort of, no decision making. It was just sort of, very conceptual, general ideas. The park board, is discussing this too, about ideas and possibilities. So just wanted to bring that to, up in front of you and to you.
At some point in the future, would somebody maybe from the Parks Board be able to come and present on their ideas, or even on their ideas for like next steps, whether that be like doing some sort of survey or whatever it is they decide? I think that could be a nice way to tie all of our, our groups together and have something.
And that was really it. That's as simple as it is. That was, there's no details, there's no decision making. It was just generally that's what's happening, and those ideas that are floating out there.
Excellent, thank you. Any other thoughts or comments? No. Okay.
Next item up is to consider a resolution authorizing the township manager to execute PennDOT highway occupancy permit condition statements and maintenance agreements.
I move to adopt.
We might need do we need an explanation?
This is just a blanket agreement that allows me to sign. We already have done probably 2 of these for the PennDOT traffic signals themselves. What this would allow me to do, and what's holding up us getting our permit for the new signal at Horsham Road and Tournament Drive, is we are implementing more plantings on the islands of, like at Drescher Road and Horsham Road, rather than all concrete. So PennDOT, it's their road, they give the permit for the traffic signal, they don't want any responsibility for those beds. So what they want me to sign off on is an agreement that says, they're your beds, you're gonna maintain them, we're not responsible for them. But I don't have that authority to sign off on that. So this resolution and form, you pass it tonight, then henceforth, as these things pop up on us, we can keep all of our projects moving efficiently.
I move to adopt the resolution as proposed, authorizing the township manager to execute PennDOT highway occupancy permit conditions, statements, and management and maintenance agreements.
Second?
Moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. McCarty, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dr. Pattison, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Thompson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Chunky, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ms. Slaff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
So we have a couple announcements before adjournment. Miracle Field 5K is March 28th at 9 a.m. in Deep Meadow Park. The Easter egg hunt is at the Horsham Township Library, also on March 28th at 10:30 a.m. And Horsham Day is Saturday, June 6th, with a rain date of June 7th. And with all of that announced, we can adjourn the meeting.